And welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I don't know if you can see, it's not very well lit. This stack right here behind me, so it goes all the way down, way out of the camera. I'm reaching down. These are just a few of the journals that I have completed over the years, and so I'm going to show you some of those. I also have a shoebox full of smaller journals. I'm going to try to answer questions. I have a list right here with some questions that I got on Twitter and on my blog, and of course I hope that you will leave any questions that you have in the chat as well. So why don't we go ahead and get started? So where I thought I would start is I thought I would start by just showing you a couple different things about sort of where I started as an art journaler, and potentially just understanding that art journaling encompasses an enormous number of different styles, and I thought that might be fun to look at. So let me just make sure that I have everything technical set up. And once that's good to go, let's switch on over. So this is the journal that I'm working in right now. This is my current daily journal, and you can see it looks like a hardbound book, right? The covers are hard. Knock, knock, knock. Anybody home? And inside the pages, right, don't have a gap. Now this is bound. You can see this is one of my junk journals. This is a lot of pattern paper. This is a print that I did in my journal, and I just cut the page to fit the print because, yes, you can cut your pages. Just some other stuff. So actually one of the questions that I got was Joanne Howard on Twitter said, what do you do when you're frozen staring at a blank page? And the answer is I made my own journal so that I purposely did not have blank pages, because you can see you come to all kinds of stuff. So that is sort of stage one. But let's take a step back for a second. So there are lots of different kinds of journals. This is a cheap little Kansan book, and I wanted to learn how to draw faces. So, and you can see they're dated. This is January 1st, 2012. I just started drawing. You know, sometimes they're terrible. Sometimes they're truly terrible. Sometimes there's color, sometimes there's not. All kinds of different materials. I started going across the spread in some points. But you can see as I go that I'm playing with materials. Sometimes this is supposed to be my mother. Anybody who follow me might recognize her, might not. But this is already June of 2012. And I'm just kind of drawing pictures. So what size are the pages? That's a good question. And you know what? Luckily, I have a ruler. So these are almost 6 inches by a little more than 8. That's the answer to that. And you can see this one is even done on a book page and taped in. And you guys, this is an art journal. Even though there's no writing or very little writing, just dates and stuff, it's still a journal because it still passes time. It's still a book. It's filled with art. And I think my drawing got a lot better. I mean, if we flip back for just a second, drawing 1 to here, you know, I think I'm understanding shading. I'm understanding eyes. I'm understanding all kinds of stuff a lot better. This is a page I painted black, something I do in my big journals all the time. And you know what? Pages get ruined. This one was some unfortunate leak through or something, and that's fine. It's just a journal. You can see more faces, water-soluble crayons. I'm just experimenting with styles, full figure as opposed to just a face. All kinds of fun stuff. And this is, I think, part of the joy of art journaling. And here you go. This is a very sort of classic art journaling thing, right? With some text, with some art, but all of it is in fact an art journal. So this is where I was sort of teaching myself to draw faces, and this is November 22nd, 2012. So this is basically a year of drawing faces and getting better and better along the way. Practice really does work. One of the things I love about an art journal. A kind of fun art journal offshoot, which is not technically totally an art journal, is this is a zine. That's a Z-I-N-E. And you can see with the red thread, maybe you can see with the red thread. Let's see if I can show you. There's red thread. It's stitched together. It's just basically 2 pieces of photocopies. And this is a pod zine that I did. And it's just about exploring the pod shape. And you can see there's that pod shape. Here's the pod shape. These are magazine pages. Can you see the figures that have been cut right there? And then you can see this hand-carved stamp prints. This is painting. but it's all that same shape being explored in a lot of different ways. Again, magazine cutouts. You can see the girl's face in here, an arm, some text, more painting, and on the back, more stamps that have that same thing. And the little zine down here says this was made in 2012, Julie Fei-Fan Balzer, and has my blog. So this is like a way that you could share an art journal with somebody. It's a little book that you make, usually a small personal run, and you send around to your friends, family, or sell to people that you know, and they have a little art book. So zines are kind of a fun idea too. Let's pull over the shoebox. Another kind of art journal is, of course, I show this on my blog all the time, but this is watercolor. So this is more like a sketchbook, but one of the things that I do is I still do a lot of writing. So you can see this is full of text with the drawing, and I talk about like what I was doing that day. Sometimes they're just experiments, sometimes it's going the wrong way, and you know what? Who cares? Flip it over. It's not that hard, right? It's all pretty easy, and you can see this is only even half painted in. There are parts that are not painted. But even very complicated scenes. This is Times Square area, building tops, you know, things that don't quite end up being drawings that are just practice. This is a close-up drawing that I did when I was eating lunch by myself. A sketchbook is a great thing to take with you. So just another kind of an art journal you can see because you're making art in a book. Now this is a teen little book, one of my faves. Another kind of art journal, this is a book. Let's see if we want to focus here. There we go. This is a book, and it's an altered book. So when you open it, I'll hold it a little bit closer. It's a tunnel book. And you can see I've cut these holes as I've put these pages, and I've also highlighted the text on the pages that I want to be here. So it says, grasp for the truth, difficulty, and worry. Be true to your highest ideals. See, forgive injuries, live. Momentous decisions go around the world, merging your heart and mind. Many days of right living, a finer life, meaning and purpose. Every unselfish effort to assist includes responsibility. Pity is useless. The person we could be. And so it's like I made a poem out of this entire book just by, you know, adding that, and the idea that the hole or the tunnel sort of goes through, and this is actually an AA recovery book, so it seemed like a nice way of talking about recovery as a tunnel, as a hole, as, you know, all that kind of stuff. And this is just a little book that I found in a junk shop, and that's a kind of art journal. So I won't make you look through all these millions of different books that are in here. I just want you to know that there are lots of different ways to do an art journal. Somewhat more classic, of course, is a larger format book. Now, this is a purchased book. I just made a cover for it. This is actually a, remember those paper bag book covers you made to cover your school books? So that's all this is, because this has a cover that gets, that's fabric and gets icky. So it's just literally a paper bag cover. And I'm going to go ahead and put this back in. And it keeps everything nice and neat in there. Maybe. Let's see. Slide it in. Okay. Then, some pages are a hot mess of collage and paint and whatever else. Some pages, you know, I'm just going to call this done. It may be a hot mess, but it's done. Color wheel. This is stamp. These are all hand-carved stamps. Again, like, I'm going to just say it's done because you get to decide. This is just, you know, background paint. Here is a very non-traditional flag. Again, like drawings and pictures and collage and stamping. An art journal is all about all of your favorite things, and stenciling, and, you know, these are some of my favorite things, and so they've ended up in my journal when I'm experimenting with different ways of doing things. Again, lots of text. I like to doodle. And so if you look here, you can see I like to doodle a lot. So there's lots of that. There's, again, just writing, faces, all kinds of stuff. Sometimes I glue in quotes when you don't have the words. I like to cut my pages, so that's what this is. I just took scissors. I cut this, I cut that. you know, put the tag in. Like, your journal does not have to be a place where nothing ever happens. Here's just pattern, but I think it's really effective to just have pattern, and you don't have to cover that stuff up. The other thing I'll point out, which I will do some live demos, so you'll see that, is I really, really like to not blend my paint colors totally. I just like that active line that you see there. Quotes with lettering, and you know, when you have drips that come through or other messes, don't worry about it. That's life. It's totally fine. Blank page. Another page that's started to be cut a little bit. And another flip flap in the middle of the page randomly, an envelope that appears to have been stuck in, along with some other stuff. So again, like, an art journal can be anything that you want it to be. Sometimes an art journal is not even like a fancy journal. This is a drawing pad. And when you open it, this is cut paper. It's actually collage, just black construction paper sort of cut up, or cardstock probably. I'm going to turn this to the side just because it's awkward to flip it to the top. Painting lines, practicing writing, drawing with a stick, alphabeting with a stick. This is an interesting and complicated page. So you can see it's collage. I did some weaving that I cut in the center. There's painting. It's like a hot mess, but interesting nonetheless. It's a place for experimentation. Again, drawing. This is charcoal, which you can see spread all over the other side. One of the reasons that I keep it more in a flip way. It's supposed to be a self-portrait. I'm not sure. You tell me. And again, more drawings. This is actually a picture of a relative of mine, which I drew from a photograph. A lot more charcoal drawing. Charcoal drawing. Just playing around and experimenting with what I can do. Full-on painting. Big flower head, huh? Fantasy, as I think that's it. So again, this is a totally different kind of art journal, and one of the nice things about this is if you like anything in here, you can easily rip it out and frame it, as opposed to a bound journal where that's a little bit more difficult. I have, on occasion, used a spiral bound book. They're not my favorite, but I do sometimes use them. And you can see I painted over that entirely. Sometimes you get something that's kind of a mess. They're more sketchbooky. This is the process of that coming together. A lot of endless doodling. Possible ideas for designs. Something that's more traditionally kind of art journaling, I guess I would say some of these pages are. It's hard to see, but this was early in my art journaling when I was still trying to find out what kind of art journaler I wanted to be, how I wanted to do things, and I think that's really important to remember, that you get better. Here's a place where I was playing with different supplies. You can see Letraset markers, watercolor, glaze pens, and doodled. So you could see the difference between each of those, and it becomes a reference point, which is really nice. So flipping through, you can see this is actually a very early Dina Wakely page. She and I were hanging out, and she did a page in my journal, and I did a page in her journal, and that's hers. So I'm going to keep going through, and you can see, you know, there's nothing brilliant here. It's just playing around, monkeying around, trying out patterns, stamp ideas. So I do a lot of stamp carving. So I drew out some designs, and a lot of these actually did become stamps, which I think is really cool. And I think that's it. So let's look at some of the, if you follow me, you might know a little bit more what my journals tend to look like, which is a little bit like this, a little bit like this, a little bit like this, like this. Oy, 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 how about like this? You know, this is a composition book, a little bit more untraditional. And it had grid paper in it, and can you see the masking tape? And what I did very early in my art journaling is I just taped together a bunch of pages in this composition book and made pages. and that's totally cool. They feel funky. It's a crazy book, but you know what? Oh yeah. They're super duper fun, and I'm happy and glad that I have them. So, but again, like, let's see if I can move this giant pile. Oh, just so you know, some of the books out of the way, and let's look at, throw them on the floor. Oh, I don't know if you heard that, but it sounds like the house collapsed. Let's look at some more. So all kinds of journals. This is one where you can see it says on the cover 28 patterns, where it was a month of February, and all I did was each page is a pattern. I was practicing getting good at patterns, and I used the left side to do practice and the right side to do the finished pattern. And I love some of these. They really turned out fantastic and interesting. But anyway, here you go. Here's another wire bound. Here's an art journal I put in under some press and seal to keep these stitched pieces separate. Here's a journal where I actually wrote. This is a book about me and my life and my thoughts and hopes, my fears and mistakes. This is my daily art journal. Pretty fun. This one has stones embedded in the cover. This one is pretty cool. Okay, let's move this giant pile on over. And let's take a look inside, and then I will get to your questions. So this is a fun journal too. This is something I found at an antique shop, and I glued it onto the front of this journal that I made. And if we look inside, you can see it starts to be my daily pages. So you can see I have a date and the day of the week, and then I go ahead and have it, and it goes 4, 5, 6, 7, oops, I missed a day, 12. Some of the pages don't have anything on them other than art, and that's totally fine. Again, 13, 14, 15, but then 16, 17, 18. So sometimes I'm very daily and sometimes I'm not. Here's a little short page, kind of cute. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. These are magazine pages. So you can use a lot of different stuff in your art journal. And you can see it's 24 to 28, and I don't kick myself for having missed those dates. I think it's totally fine. I do a lot of stamping, a lot of painting, a lot of eyes. There's lettering of all kinds. I had a fast forward video of this on my Instagram and on my blog today. My pages have holes in them sometimes. This is just gluing stuff in because it's pretty or interesting. Again, stamping is something I love to do. More magazine images. Stenciling. This is stenciling with glitter. I don't know if you can see how shiny that is. Lots of little bits of stuff that are interesting to me go into my journal. All these daily pages. I really like the way this collage of garbage turned out. And yes, my pages stick together. Everybody's pages stick together to a certain amount. It's sad, but it's true. You just sort of live through it. Profile. I don't do a lot of profile. This is a bag that somebody gave me that actually said the thank you, F you on it. And I just thought it was funny, so I drew the stripes and put the bag in as a page in the art journal. And then there's some foiling on here. You can see it right there. Shiny, shiny, shiny. Lots of hands. This is an old photo of my mom, my grandma, and my aunt. A little Picasso that I stole. This is a tape transfer, and it is a hot mess. It's supposed to stand alone by itself, okay? You can see it here. But it is a little bit sticky, but there's a face in here and some other cool stuff. Now, if you're interested in learning this particular style of art journaling, I do have some online classes all about it, and I am going to be giving away some spots in that, or in those classes. So I hope that you will stay tuned for that. Ooh, I love how these flowers, and again, there's no text here. It's still an art journal. Going through, sometimes I put a photo in if I have one. And again, sometimes there's no text. It's just stuff. Tags. I use tags in my art journal all the time. I love to glue them in. Love this page. Again, a Picasso. I think I had a calendar of Picassos and I just stole them. Some things are realistic, some things are not realistic. I'm very interested, more tags, in creating faces that are interesting and not pretty. I think pretty is kind of boring. These are all tags, by the way. Tag, 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 and they're all just glued in and then taped over. So that is a flip through of my 2015 October through April journal. Just to give you a peek, and now I'm going to try to answer some questions and show you some techniques, which I thought would be really fun. Let me just get everything set up here for that. Let's see. Okay, so we should be live. Okay, so I'm looking at the chat and seeing people saying they need to know how to make a junk journal, and I see, is it Iona Howe saying that Julie's How to Make a Junk Journal is the best class, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I love teaching all of that kind of stuff, so I'm glad to hear that you love it. So, let me know if you have any questions. Steve is texting me with any questions that you guys have or anything like that. So I have my phone right here and I'm able to grab it and see them and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to start with some questions that I have right here. So Joanne Howard, I remember I said that she said, what do you do when you're frozen staring at a blank page? And I said, I just cover up the pages, or I start with non-blank pages in my junk journal. So I wanted to read you the rest of her comment, which is, she says, I keep trying to make it all just so instead of just being what it is that day. And I was kind of like, Joanne, you just answered your question 100%, you know, because that is the whole point. If you're trying to make it just so, you're just never going to be able to let go. An art journal, it's just a thing. You can see how, like, the pages get messed up. It's just a thing. It's okay. And I think if you can learn to relax about your art journal, you actually can learn to relax about all of your art, which is really liberating. The other thing is, I'm actually going to show you how I quickly like to just cover a totally blank page. So I'm going to get that set up in a minute. But I did want to quickly answer this question also about jelly pens, because I'm going to show you that after it, which is Kim T asked me how to use jelly pens on painted pages and what to do when jelly pens clog. So one little talk about jelly pens for just a second. What she's talking about is gel ink pens, and this is my favorite kind. These are Moonlight pens from Sakura. They show up really well on dark. And the real issue is, it's not that they clog. People think that they've clogged because they can see the ink, because you can see through here. They think that it's clogged when the ink doesn't come out. But the truth is, you probably threw it, dropped it. Even if you drop it into a cup like I'm holding right now, you're not really supposed to store them like this. What happens is you break the little ball inside of here, and the ink can't come out because the ball is broken. It's actually a very sensitive thing that keeps the gel ink in there. So you want to try to make sure to keep them as much as possible gently. Place them into a cup or store them more horizontally, and never slam them down because that's what breaks them. But I'll show you how to use them in a minute. So let me get a blank piece of something set up here, and we will get going. And yeah, keep the questions coming. Steve's going to text them to me so that I know what you're asking. So let me get this old journal out of the way. And let me grab, so I'm going to grab this spiral bound because it's got lots of totally blank pages. So you have a totally blank page and it's intimidating too. So I'm going to give you 3 quick ideas for how to deal with that. The answer is, Don't even think about what you're going to make. Sit in front of the TV, grab some paint, and smush it around. Now, I'm not even changing my brush or anything, and I'm just smushing some paint around. And now you can see I'm getting a nice purple, actually, with this hot pink and the blue. And I'm using acrylic paint. You could use watercolor. I wouldn't recommend oils, although some people do. It's just because they take a really long time to dry. So in a book, that can be really just annoying and time taking up. So the problem with a blank page is that there's nothing to respond to. And the thing is, I think you always want something to respond to, something that makes you think, ew, that's ugly, I have to fix it, or wow, that's fabulous, I want to accentuate it. So literally, and you know what, you guys, I just covered up all of the blue that I had previously done, almost all. And you know what? Well, that's okay. Nobody's coming after me. It's totally fine. So, and then I have some extra paint. I might as well put it on this side as well. And I'm really scrubbing the brush in there. Okay, so I've done this incredible piece of art. And now, while it's still sort of wet-ish, I think I'm going to grab a stencil and a baby wipe and just rub off some of that wet paint. Nothing revolutionary, right? But now I have the pattern of the stencil starting to be in there, right? And I can bring it around. And even more than that, I now can take my stencil to the other side and just rub that baby wipe through it, and it should have some paint in it, and it's going to sort of do a watercolory transfer. So now, I'm not trying to make a masterpiece. I'm going to say this again. I'm just trying to make a mess. Because if you make a mess, then you have something to respond to the next time you come. So I'm going to take another stencil. I love spray ink, by the way, and this is actually the brand that I've been using a lot of. These are art sprays from Marabou, and they have a ball inside. Can you hear it? And that's because they're actually acrylic, so they dry permanent, which I really, really like. So you don't have to worry about smushing them around. And the whole point with sprays is not to be precise. It's to get a little bit messy, and I like to flip it over. And I'm rubbing, but not, you know what I mean, to really use the baby wipe, just because I don't want to use my hand and get totally icky. And you can see now, I have some nice things here, and before it dries, I can take my brush. Ooh, I still have purple paint in there. I have a lot of purple paint in there. I can take my brush, and I can just move it around a little bit. I can also shake, 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 shake. Open it up and into the wet, do some drawing, into the dry, do some drawing. But the point is you want to have a total hot mess. In fact, let's close our book and smush the pages, or not even close it. Let's just smush things together and see what happens. Okay? You just want to have something so that the next time I sit down to create, I'm not going to create on top of this. And that's another thing. Create your art journal pages over time. Give yourself that space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this sit, let it dry, come back to it in a week or 3 weeks or a month and sort of see where it gets to. Now, what do you do when you're in a journal and you want to flip the page, but it's wet? I use deli paper. And I just put the deli paper in, and then I flip the page, okay? So another idea of dealing with a blank page like this is sometimes I will just draw something. So a lot of times for me, that's a face, because that's what's interesting to me. But there are other people for whom it's a flower, a dog, a bird. And the only reason, and I'm not like taking a lot of time or thinking about it a lot or anything like that. I'm just trying to get something on here. again, to respond to. And if I want to go across the crack, let's say that's hair. And we'll give her a neck. Okay? And now, this page isn't blank. It's certainly not done, but it isn't blank. So the next time I come to it, I can sort of play around and have fun. So I promised you 3 ideas. So this is another idea that I do sometimes, which is, this is 1/4 of a jelly plate, meaning I cut an 8.5 by 11 or a 9 by whatever size they are. I cut a jelly plate up. I'm very sorry, but you can see it's all uneven and messed up. I wanted a smaller plate and I didn't have a smaller plate, so I cut it up. And then one of the things you can do is roll some paint out onto it, like so. Clean your sprayer. Again, now that page isn't blank. Then you can draw into the jelly plate like this. Man, jelly is so addictive. Now you can make your own gelatin plates if you want. And then you're just going to use this like a giant stamp. Whoop. And in fact, if you had a really big block, it would cling to the block. So I stamped my flower, and I can stamp the ghost again right here. And then we can go back again. And I can stay with the same color, or I can go with a different color. Whatever I want. But you can see that very soon, I mean, in less than 10 minutes, I'm going to have done 3 backgrounds on pages to make them really look cool. And again, I'm just cleaning off here. Now, you can, of course, also take a stencil of some kind. Let's see if I can grab a stencil. Here we go. And now I'm just going to take my stencil, flop this over, push. And I've done some stenciling. Then on the plate, I have the stencil image, plop. And now I have the stencil. I probably have even more of a ghost. There you go. And so now and again, I'm not trying to create something finished. I'm just for Joanne telling you, when you start, just start. Just start. Now you have something to respond to. Now you can look at this and be like, this is some interesting stuff. What do I want to do with it? So now on to the gel pens. So the question was, when you have acrylic paint, how do you do gel pens on top of that? So let's find some acrylic paint. So this is just green paint. And I'm going to take my gel pens here, which I did not slam down in any way. And this is going to seem kind of stupid because you don't really do anything. They just go. I mean, I'm not having any trouble. And they're quite nice. This may be a little small. I'll hold it up a little higher for the camera to see. But you just kind of draw. And because it's a non-porous surface, the gel comes out nice and thick, nice and bright. Take a look at my incredible gel penning right there. But you can see it shows up really nicely. I do it a lot for lettering and some other things. Oh, actually, I have a great example of it. Hold on, let's see if I can find it. And this big pile of stuff. Okay, so this, and actually this one too. So these are books that I jelly printed in. So what they look like is the pages just look like this. They're just jelly prints, like you saw me do just now, except with a bigger plate. And then what I did is I redacted them with black. And this is all gel pens in here. I'm going to hold that up so you can see. Other than the black, all these lines and dots, that's all gel pens on top of those acrylic prints. And it looks really, really cool. But this is another fun way to just play, which is you're doing the reverse. So what's redacting? If you're confused as how we got from here to here, I'll show you. basically, let's say I wanted to do, whoops, I need a black marker. Okay. Let's say I wanted to do an eye. Now, normally, if you were going to draw an eye, you would go like that, right? So when you're redacting, you kind of want to do the opposite of that, which is to say, if you want, I'm explaining it terribly. Let's do a simpler one. Let's do, okay, if I want to do a heart, instead of making a heart and coloring it in, the color's already there. So I actually want to color the other part of it. So what I would do is, for instance, if there's a figure, I'm drawing like the outline of a figure, right? Because what I'm going to do then is color out all of this stuff around it so that it will look like I painted the figure in, if that makes sense. So that is how all of these drawings were done, right? Is the color was already there, and I colored the black around it. The color was already there, so to do like letters, I would be like J, B, and then I'm coloring between here, so it will look like I did when I'm done the color after, but actually I did the black part after. How do we get talking about this? I think it was the gel pen question. To return to the gel pen question. But you can see, right, I'm just redacting around it. Okay, pretty neat. So let me take a peek at some of the art journaling questions that I see. Have I marbled anything from last week for any art journal pages yet? You know, I haven't, but you know what we should do is let me take some of that marbled paper. So here are some of the papers that I marbled. And why don't we just go ahead and glue some of it into, oh, this one's really pretty. Let's do this one. I like this one the best. Oh, I can't even find my current art journal, you guys. It's like a hilarious pile after pile of art journal around here. I have no idea. I've got no idea where anything is. Okay, well, let's just try to find a blank art journal. Oh, no, here's my current art journal. That's lucky. Okay, so I'm going to open this up, and let's put it on this page right here. So all I do when I glue deli paper in is, this is matte medium, one of my favorite things. And I just put it directly down. I take my handy dandy key card, smooth out the matte medium, put down the paper, do the crack first. And then deli paper is really hardy, so you can pull it up if you find there isn't enough glue somewhere and apply some more glue. I'm just getting that pattern in there. And you can see that where it doesn't have any paint on it, it goes kind of transparent, so it starts to blend with the page, which is the reason I love deli paper. And it starts to look like you might have actually painted or marbled directly onto this page. And these paints, you know, they're not coming off. I'm not seeing any kind of coming off. It's still, this is still completely white, clear, and this will dry clear the matte medium well for me. And again, this is has a lot of tensile strength, so I'm easily able to pull parts up and pull them around. So, well, there you go. Now I have my marbled paper in my art journal. You can see it here, and the edge of the paper is here. The edge of the paper is here. Let me show that up to you really close, and you can see how it goes kind of translucent, transparent, so you can't really see where the edge is. And now I'm going to be able to, when I come to here, have something to respond to. It's a non-blank page, which again is always my favorite. So next question. Let's see. Teresa Gonzalez says, Julie, you used to use tape as a border around your more fragile stencils, but I don't see you use that technique anymore. Do you do something else? So it's not about stencils being fragile. I put tape around all of my 6x6 stencils. You can see the tape right here. The only time that I don't have tape is if they're so new that I haven't had time to add the tape to them, because it takes a little while to go ahead and do that. But the reason I do this is because, do you see how close the design is to the edge of the stencil? The actual edge of the stencil is where I folded it back. So I want to give myself some more room so that when I'm stenciling, and let me just grab a cosmetic wedge sponge here, so that when I am doing some stenciling, I'm just a lot neater. So I'm going to put out some paint over on my palette. And now, even if I go all the way over here, can you see that I'm actually pouncing onto the tape? I know that I'm still going to get a nice, neat, and clean result instead of something that is sort of messy. And there you go. I don't get any of the edge of the stencil. So I really started doing that because I was a terrible stenciler. And I'm still a terrible stenciler, so I still do it. Let's see. What is the next question? So Hudson Sailor 54, hi Nancy, says, how do you create your pages over time if you write daily in the journal? Perfect question. So this is wet. Let me get a piece of jelly paper. So again, I'm just putting this in here to keep it from sticking together too badly until I can get back, although sometimes the jelly paper does get stuck in. So this is what my pages look like. So, whoop. See, this is glue that came through from gluing that in. So sometimes, so one of the things that I often do, and I'm just cleaning that up, is I dry my art journal like this. I just let it sit upright. Then your pages don't stick together as much. So this is a page, and then all of a sudden, boom, all this text. So you can see these are my daily pages. So today when I start, I'll be on this page. But I've already started drawing on this next page. So I work ahead in terms of art, okay? I work ahead in terms of art. But then for my daily ones, I just come in and write out my little daily bits on pages that already are set up for me. So this page has been set up for at least a week now for me to get ready to go on. So I'll start adding my daily bits. And in the meantime, I'll finish out this page, decide if I want to add a flower or if I want to paint this stuff out, how I want to deal with stuff. If I want to, let's see, I'm just looking for scissors, although I would lose anything if it weren't attached to me, and apparently I have lost my scissors. But I was going to say, if I want to like cut this, well, we can rip it, you know. And again, you guys, this is my real journal. It's just not that precious, okay? It's just paper. Who cares? This is just a piece of paper. So rip it, cut it, do whatever. Don't be nervous or scared. So that's how that works. And again, in my art journaling classes online, I do show you, especially in 30 days in your journal and 30 days in your junk journal, which are 2 online classes that I have. It's literally 30 days real time, and I show you how every single day it works. Now, those ones we don't work ahead as much, but 30 days in your junk journal, there's definitely some work ahead, so you can sort of see how that works. So let me just look for the next question. So this is from Sharon Coughlin, and she says, do you know if all the Sakura gel pens work as well as the Moonlight? Is the only difference with the Moonlight the colors? Okay, so I don't 100% know, but this is the basics of what I understand. The Moonlight pens are the only ones that are 100% guaranteed to write on top of dark surfaces. The regular gel pens some colors will write on dark and some won't. And is it Stardust? They all have some glitter pens that will also work really well on dark and some won't. But all of the gel pens will definitely write on a non-porous surface like acrylic paint. I do know that the glaze and souffle pens, which are their dimensional ones, are not recommended for being in a book because your pages can tend to stick together because they're raised. But the other ones, I believe, are totally fine. So I hope that answers that question. This question now is from Quarter Horse, who says, what paper did you use in your redacted journal? So that is somewhere on the floor. Hold on. So this is a Kansan Journal. So I didn't bind this. This is by Kansan. Let's see if you can, whoop, whoop, which way? This way. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah, this is by Kansan. It's a bought journal, and I literally, it's whatever paper's in there. But it's really nice. I like this a lot. And I think these journals come in more than this size. I think they come in a smaller size, too. And then we have 2 more questions. Let's see. So Rose Flower says, do you incorporate regular photos into your art journal? Miss your Project Life pages. So the answer, so first let's talk about Project Life. So if you don't know, Project Life is pocket scrapbooking, and I still do it. But the real thing is, once my ex-husband and I split up, I didn't want to share a lot of what was going on in my personal life, so I don't really post those. But rest assured, I'm still a scrapbooker, and I'm still doing a lot of that stuff. And I do sometimes put photos into my art journals. I think I showed at least one journal that had some. I know I was flipping through one of these old journals earlier today, and I was noticing that some of them had, not this one apparently, although, come on, this is hilarious. This is like 2009, maybe me. I think that's hilarious. That's watercolor on top of acrylic. I didn't know that you weren't supposed to do that. And that's the other thing. Who cares? You're not supposed to do that. What does it matter, right? I think maybe this is the one that I saw a photo in recently. Oh, yeah. This is kind of like, you know, that's a, this side. There you go. That's a little travel photo in there. I have some of the big ones where occasionally I'll put in a photo, but because I do Project Life and I do scrapbook, I tend to keep them pretty divided, I'll confess. The next question is Dana Yates says, how do you keep your pages from sticking long term? So, the best advice I can give you is gesso. Not underneath your paint, in your paint. I also will tell you that, let's see if I can find it. Here you go. The difference between these 2 paints for your art journal is this one won't make your pages stick and this one will. So let me explain. Anything that's shiny is going to stick together. Shiny things stick together. Anything that's more matte is not going to stick together. So by adding gesso, you make sure that your pages are more matte because that chalky finish, and so it helps your pages not stick together. And this is matte fluid acrylic, and this is regular fluid acrylic. If you use the matte, that's the one with the top like this, then your pages are just not going to stick together as much. Otherwise, you can put matte medium over the top to try to help it. I don't do any of that waxing or other stuff that people do. I haven't had a lot of problems with it. I do live in a somewhat humid environment, but it's certainly not Florida or anything like that, and it's pretty much been okay. But you heard, my pages stick together. I'm human, just like everyone else. Next question is Iona Howe says, what's your go-to black journaling pen when writing over acrylic paint? I've ruined so many pens. So I have to credit Suzanne Sicaranza. I had been using this pen, which is known as the Scarlet Lime pen, which is the Pilot Uniball something. I can't even remember what it's called anymore because they stopped making it, is the point. But she found, and I ordered like 50 of them after she found it, this pen. This is the Pilot Multiball. It is awesome. I love it. All the journaling that you see in my recent journals has been done with this pen. It doesn't clog, it doesn't smear, it writes on top of acrylic, it doesn't get ruined. I mean, the acrylic has to be dry, obviously, but it's fantastic. It comes in 2 different tip sizes. I believe that this is the bolder of the two, but I'm not entirely sure because all of the writing on this is in Japanese. So I'm not really sure, but I think it is. But yeah, fantastic, works great. You can buy them on Amazon, you can buy them on JetPens, and I'll put some links when I turn this video. This video you will be able to watch on replay, and I'll be sure to link that up when I put it on replay so that you can grab that information. And I think that that might have been the very last question, which is kind of perfect because it is 3:55, and I said it would be about an hour. So this is going to end up having worked out so well. Oh, so I just see one last question here, which is what marker was I using to redact? So that is, this is just a different color, but it's the same marker, which is, this is a Permapaque. I love Permapakes. They're amazing and awesome. They're also from Sakura. And they have this big tip. I use them to draw in my journal all the time. It's the #1 marker. It's probably one of the only markers I use in my journal. Most of the faces. So this face was drawn with a Permapaque, with a black Permapaque. That's how I drew it. So I use them nonstop, constantly, all the time. Love, love, love them. So now I'm going to take one last peek through the questions, and while I'm doing that, Steve is going to pick a winner, chicken dinner, somebody who's been commenting throughout the broadcast. Actually, we're going to pick two people. One person is going to win the How to Make a Junk Journal class, and the other person is going to win the 30 days in your junk journal class. So Steve, whenever you're ready, get ready to pick, and in the meantime, I will answer some questions. So what are the top products you would pick to keep at the ready to make art journaling every day easier? Well, I mean, I can tell you what I already have right around here. I have a cart that has all my brushes and my favorite paints right to my right side. On my left, I have all my Permapakes, my Moonlight pens, and then I have, oh, right here I have my favorite stamping ink, Archival ink by Ranger Jet Black. This is old packaging. I've had this stamp pad for 10 years, and I just re-ink it constantly with this little re-inker, which works great. And then I have, like, this has my little stamps for the numbers that I do every day. Here I have little containers which say on the end what they are, and they have other stamps that I like to use. So you can see how all I have to do is lean. I have sitting right here on my desk a file that says deli paper done. So this is all painted deli paper. That's how I was able to just grab that marbled paper, because I pulled it right out of this folder. I just have all of those things sort of right here, really easy. So, anyway, I think that's it. Somebody's saying, oh, I see Wendy's saying, and Wendy, I'm going to see you in class this weekend. I'm excited about that. Do you ever use the Posca paint pens? I have a few, but because you can see they're not at my fingertips, they're not my go-tos. I tend not to use a lot of shaky pens. The only shaky pen I use is not that one. Is the white, here we go, the white Sharpie Extra Fine Point. I like the Posca pens. I think they're fantastic. I just think I have a lot of, it's easier for me to get here. And Steve has just posted the winners. If you look in the chat, you can see them. So if you guys just send me an email at balzerdesigns@gmail.com, I'll make sure to get you all set up with that. So I'm looking, and by the way, thank you for all of your nice comments. I really appreciate that so much. That's really nice. Oh, and somebody, of course, Kat Scanlon did ask, what is your favorite white pen from top of acrylic? It's this bad boy. It does a great job. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I also want to thank Steve for being a fantastic moderator. This is, there was a woman who watched who suggested that I have a moderator, because the last time I did a live stream, I had some problems with some awkward comments. And that was really great. And yes, this white Sharpie is my go-to white pen. It is the one that I use all the time. If you're interested in more art journaling, check out my online classes. Every Friday on my blog is Art Journal Every Day. where, of course, we talk about art journaling every day and the whole idea of daily art journaling and lots of different kinds of art journaling. So I hope to see you around, and I will make sure to put this up as a class that you can see over and over and over again. And I see there's one last question here. Is 30 days in your junk journal a different class than 30 days in your art journal? And the answer is yes, it's vastly different. So 30 days in your art journal was when I was first doing daily art journaling, and it used a lot of different supplies, watercolor, etc. 30 days in your junk journal is specifically about working in a journal that already has something to respond to, as opposed to blank pages. So that's it. I'm going to get out of here. Oh, if you want to follow me anywhere on social media, I guess I should say that. Then I'm at Balzer Designs. That's just my last name, and Balzer Designs, and you can find me there. Also, if you want to find out anything about any of the stencils and stuff that I design, you can find a complete list of the stencils at the URL that you can see on your screen right now. And if you're more interested in the foam stamps, you can, of course, find those on the Art Foamies website, which you can follow that link there. And again, I'll link everything in the show notes once this is a recording. And I think that just about wraps it all up. So again, thank you so much to everyone. Big shout out to Steve for doing a great job with the moderation. And I guess I'll see you guys the next time. See you around. Thanks so much.